Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Skip, aka Skip and Tosh. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being patient. There was a little bit of a hiatus, or we had 2 bye weeks because I had some preparation to do, but we're back, delayed, yet here. I have with me on my right, your right, my left, Twin. Say what's up to the people, Twin.
What's up, everybody? How are y'all doing? It's good to be back. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, winter solstice, Kwanzaa, any holiday you're celebrating. Hope you're having a good time. Hope you're staying warm and snuggled up inside with some good comics, uh, like the kind we're about to talk about.
Yes, indeed. We are getting ready to talk some Jonathan Hickman, Fantastic Four, Volume 6. But before we do, we have another guest here, Mr. Von Comics. Say hi to the people, Mr. Von Comics. They missed you.
Hello to the people. Merry Christmas, soon to be. Coming here in a few days. Hope everyone's having a good holiday season and finding yourself in good tidings.
Yes, the Yuletide. May we all be in the season. I'm usually not a season person, but I found myself to be coming around to it last year and this year, primarily because my birthday, which is tomorrow, December 23rd, it's 2 days before Christmas, and kind of can't outshine Jesus's birthday. So, after a while, I was just like, man, I'm over it. Like, my birthday is just a pebble in the sea of sand of this whole other event. But yeah, recently I've been getting into it more, and so I'm hoping that everybody else is hopefully in the spirit of the season. If not, then hopefully find some sort of joy in this time,
Well,
because
what better way to celebrate your birthday than to celebrate Jesus?
yeah, I mean,
I
there's kind
mean,
of not. That's why my
I'm sure
birthday
when you're
kind of has
young,
been
you don't think
irrelevant.
about it that way, but now that you're older and wiser,
Nah, you're not really talking me into it, buddy. Jesus has his day, and Skip needs to have his. Okay, we're
wow, that
two
sounds a
different
little
people.
rebellious.
Yeah, maybe it is. All right,
A little
Jesus, you get
rebellious.
you get 365 days a year, or 300. Yeah, wait, without the leap year.
Well, you get 52. Figure Sundays. You get Sundays, Easter,
Son,
Christmas.
this Jesus guy. See, he's too popular. He's too popular. Here I am. I'm just getting outshined. But I have been finding a way to have enhanced joy in that time, aside from the nativity and the Messiah, and it feels good. And I have learned that it's not. I don't like Christmas music. I like some songs, very few, but I've learned that I like the hymns that we sing around this time of year, and I like caroling a lot more than I thought. So I'm learning things about myself in the ripe old age of 37. But we are learning things about this Jonathan Hickman run. Some of us are discovering them for the first time, like Ash Von Comics. Some of us are in the middle, refreshing themselves on some things that they already read and learning new things, like my twin over here. And then others like me are going back and reminded about the details and the specifics, and then the sheer planning and inspiration that went into this Jonathan Hickman Fantastic Four run. And we're excited to talk to you about it. And we're going to start soon. But one more thing I want to throw out there before I lose you. So, or not before I lose you, before we move on. We are going to finish up Fantastic Four tonight. We are going to finish Future Foundation next week, which will complete the Jonathan Hickman Fantastic Four Future Foundation fused together fulfillment, fantastic, fun. A lot of F's. But the week after that, maybe 2 weeks after that, but the week after that, make sure you tune in, because we're going to have a all in free for all battle royale conversation about the whole run, and a special guest will be joining us.
Ooh,
Okay.
special guest.
I
And
am
that's
intrigued.
all I will say for
I
now.
haven't even. Have you been informed, Zach?
I thought Ash was our special guest
Oh,
because
I'm very not
when
special.
we started, it was just the two of us, and then we brought him in like Spider-Man. I thought he was our special guest all this time. So
No.
Hey,
my curiosity is now archived under
So
peaked.
we haven't even been informed of this.
Yeah,
We're gonna
this
have to.
is this is a surprise.
All
I thought
right.
we were just gonna jump straight to a look. I showed you. Where is it at? I got like his Avengers. I was pre-gaming with Hickman's Avengers, so I was like,
Yeah.
okay, jump straight in. No, okay, I'm here for it though.
oh
I'm
yeah.
ready.
We're gonna jump into that, but you're gonna be happy about us taking our time before we leap into that Jonathan Hickman New Avengers and Avengers run. But yeah, my buddies didn't even know, and I'm filling you guys in right here on the spot, so you'll want to tune
I've
in.
been
And there it is.
I've been sneaking into the kitchen. You know how like when your mom's cooking a meal and you sneak in, you grab a little bit while she's or you try to lick the cookie dough out of the bowl while she's still that's what I've been doing. I've been sneaking into the cookie jar.
That's so funny because that's kind of where this started. I had began rereading Avengers and New Avengers by Jonathan Hickman, just because I wanted to go through that to lead up to Secret Wars, as it got announced finally officially that they were going to do an MCU adaptation. Adaptation, not the same, not just copy and paste.
Not a
Adaptation,
one to one. Not
not
a
a
one
one
to
to
one.
one,
No.
not a one to one, but
Speaking
adaptation.
of
Mhm.
speaking of adaptations, that really won't be an adaptation. It'll be more inspired by. It'd be my prediction. However, what Secret Wars will we be ultimately reading? Will we just be reading the main miniseries? Because there's a lot of stuff attached.
Yeah, it had a lot of tie-in spin-off. I don't none of them are to my knowledge, none of them are necessary. I
The
think we'll
reason I
just
ask is because I'm noticing that Comixology is having a big sale. By the way, anyone who's interested in cheap comic reads, digital like Christmas time, Comixology has some bonker sales. Like you can get a
oh
lot of
nice.
Masterworks for like $1. Um,
Yo.
yeah, like I've bought some screaming deals, so keep your attention. But I'm just noticing the Secret Wars books are on sale, which I was going to buy, and I realized, wait, I already own the Secret Wars book. But there's a Secret Wars prelude book, of which Jonathan Hickman's name is attached. So I just wanted to wonder, is that something I need to pick up, or
I'm not familiar with that Prelude book. I actually don't know what's inside of it. I
Yeah,
would
I'm not
say, I would like to know, maybe after, since we're doing this live on twitch.tv/Skipintosh, for all of you watching the VOD on YouTube, after we're done recording this, I think we should throw it up on the screen, and I think we should look at the index
okay,
of what is included inside of the Prelude to break it
sounds
down,
good.
because maybe I missed something too. I never read a Prelude book. I had only read the only Prelude book that I read was it was a prelude, but it was like a mandatory issue or arc. It was the new Avengers arc, or excuse me, the Avengers arc that is inside of the Avengers and New Avengers lead up to Secret Wars. What we will be reading is just the 6 issues,
I
nine
think it's 6
issues.
or 8 or
It's
is it
Yeah,
9
9?
issues.
9
nine
issues.
issues,
Yep.
Yeah.
nine
Yeah, because
issues of Secret Wars.
all the spin-offs and tie-ins, and I read like 5 or 6 of the spin-offs. Most of them by and large don't have anything to do with the main story. It's like they'll take certain characters like let's revisit the Old Man Logan universe, or let's do they had like there was a part of the Secret Wars world where
Right.
Spider-Man and Mary Jane were still married,
I
or
usually
like
avoid those
the
things.
Guardians of the Galaxy. I read the Guardians one because I was reading Bendis's run at the time.
Right.
I actually liked Bendis's Guardians run, but yeah, none of them. I think there might have been one that kind of loosely tied into it, but you didn't need to read it. It was just there. It was lanyap or extra, whatever you want to call it. I think it's much better just reading the core Secret War story.
Absolutely. And
Cool, cool.
in addition to that, from what I remember, because I didn't read a lot of the tie-ins, but from what I remember, that there were some tie-ins. Because again, like Zach said, a lot of them, from what I understand, didn't like they were affected by the story, but not really. They were loose. They were really just using the marketing, but
Yeah,
some of the tie-ins from what I understand have more weight in the ultimate universe concluding than the
there
mainline
was
Secret
that.
War story.
Yeah, there was that, and some of them were kind of neat. They kind of added to the world building of the battle world of the Secret Wars world. Some of them kind of added to that. The coolest one I think was they had a Thor core tie-in because in Secret Wars, the Thor core, it's like the Green Lantern. They're like the police officer. So you had all these different versions of Thor. Didn't add anything to the overall, like nothing important, from it didn't add anything to the Secret War story, but it kind of just expanded the world. And that's, I think, most, the good the good tie-ins did that. They, if nothing else, they expanded the world. Sadly, there weren't too many good tie-ins. There were maybe a handful of them. Most of them were just word
But the
vomit.
mainline story was so good they didn't need to be. You just needed to make
That's
sure that
true.
you didn't spend your mortgage or your rent money trying to buy
That's
them
true.
all. All
Yeah, yeah.
right.
You're definitely best just sticking with the main story.
Yes, indeed. So, with that said, we are going to go ahead and move on over to this main story, volume number 6 of Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four initial impressions. Twin, go.
So it's bittersweet. This is Hickman's wrapping up his Fantastic Four run. After all of the greatness that he gave us, it is bittersweet that it comes to an end. He kind of goes out. It's a little different than all the previous stories and issues we've gone through. It's a series of like one shot or one and done stories, one shot stories. It's not not all these don't all tie in together. Uh, you get some hints, some little teasers and appetizers of what he's gonna be doing when he gets to New Avengers or Avengers. Uh, a lot of it though is really, I mean, it's good. It's fun stuff. You get some stuff that harkens back to what he already gave us. We find out a little bit like, uh, you know, Council of Reeds, what one of them was about. You find out stuff like with Wizard, who was kind of a prominent villain, one of the more prominent villains featured. You get a little story with him. You just get a bunch of really fun. You get a bunch of fun stuff in here. Kind of just runs the gamut. You have some heartwarming stuff. You have some action. You have some sci-fi. A little bit of everything, and we get one of my favorite parts of the Fantastic Four mythos, a character we didn't get in the big overall Hickman story. We finally get some Black Panther and some Wakanda featured in here. We get a little 1-2 issue story with them, which is really fun. And that's one of the stories that kind of he drops some little crumbs, some little seeds leading us into what he's got with New Avengers down the road.
Oh, yes, he does. Oh, he does, Twin. And it is glorious. Yes, thank you for that. Definitely the one shots going on. I had recently read some old Stanley and Jack Kirby Fantastic Four, so it definitely you could feel Hickman paying homage to that while not just doing it in an empty fashion. He's paying homage to that while he's setting up things that he knows is going to be you know uh, highly effective to the future of his writing for Marvel, to the whole entire Marvel universe, really. So it was really cool to see, him pay respects to the past while it being meaningful for the future of the Marvel comic universe, I should say. With that, Ash, first impressions, get it.
First impressions. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with Zach in the bittersweet um, analysis. I am so hyped on how this story resolved. And I feel like, at least from what I've read, that the story is already previously resolved. What we're reading in this volume is more like epilogue.
Hmm.
Um, in some ways, it's epilogue, and other stories feel much like setup for future things, which seem like they'll prove to be true, and how it's setting up his Avengers run. Um, it's a different experience because I'm used to this big orchestrated saga that he created for the stories that we've already previously gone through, to these being more like just kind of one and done vignettes, if you will. I
Mm-hmm.
think the Black Panther story was the only one that ran multiple issues.
Yeah, I think that was like a two
Yes.
issue. I think
And
it was.
they're really cool. I enjoyed all of the stories, but obviously there's only so much you can do in a single issue story. Like,
Hmm.
you can't hope to match the grandeur, of a 30, 40 page epic, or it's not page, sorry, issue epic. I think it might be more like 50 once you throw in the Future Foundation. There was a lot of issues. Like, there's a lot of story you can tell there, and in like a single issue, it's just more of like you know a little short story. But for what they are, they're mostly like very entertaining. And I'm kind of just enjoying the. It's almost kind of like watching like your favorite movie, and then you go on the Blu-ray and you get like the behind the scenes, or the you get like the scenes that were cut from the film. I feel like that. Like, I felt like this book was getting just more of of what we had, but some of it felt like, oh, here's like a little extra side story that adds a little more information to what we knew, or this might almost feel like this is kind of on the cutting room floor, but here you get into just getting more of it. Like, and I think it's going to be very appealing to fans who made it this far. I wonder if someone just picked up Fantastic Four on issue 605, if they would be like, oh yeah, like I don't know. I think a lot of this is dependent on you having experienced the whole Hickman run and now getting these extra bits. But I found them very enjoyable to read. And the way I look at it as, like, I guess the story's over, but if I'm gonna get more, I'll take what I can get. So yeah, I'm I'm excited to see what he does with the FF books. What we'll do next time, and then leading into the Avengers, where we'll, I hope, see like another big saga unfold. Um, that's my initial impression.
Well, you can bet your hat on that, Jack. That's
About to
all.
say you got we got because I know when you get to his Avengers, like going into space and everything, like it gets big. It's got I remember it having some really awesome. I mean, I know we had some really awesome moments here with his Fantastic Four, but I recall like his Infinity story, and there's some good stuff up ahead, definitely.
Yeah, one thing I'm.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say real quick. One thing that I liked reading these was, even though they didn't have the grandeur, that I was mentioning of the what we read previously, it
Hmm.
still had that like Hickman esque thing that he brings to the table. It's like he sees the world, like there's a certain awareness, I think a certain intelligence. There's a certain, just a way about Hickman's stories that very few other writers, if any, match. Like, I think Hickman is very well read in certain scientific theories, certain, a certain level of physics. he brings that level of kind of advanced science to his books, which suits Fantastic Four really well.
Hmm.
And he seems to be someone who's like just a fan of either astrophysics or theoretical physics or just whatever. I saw that in his X-Men run as well, and I just think that most comic writers just don't have those same type of interests, and so they're not capable or not interested in bringing that to the table. And it's not like I read Fantastic Four and it's super complex and everything, but it just shapes kind of how he views. Like he just every story I read, like even his independent stuff, like Decorum, he always just brings this he comes at it from an angle that no one else does. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, even though these like are little snippet stories, they just they're the type of stories that no one else tells.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you know, for this brand, you for the most part have to go to Hickman. The next closest thing, and as I'm reading more of his stuff, I'm seeing how much he did inspire Hickman. But the next closest thing that I can think of is probably going to be Warren Ellis. You know, like his earlier stuff, like the planetary stuff, or I said his earlier stuff from, I should say, a while back now, but planetary, global frequency. Even if we're talking about like Marvel stuff, I read a little bit of his New Universal, and that stuff does have like the big, expansive, feel, sci-fi stuff, sci-fi action or espionage sci-fi. Um, it's got those things in it, but where it's a little bit more, and not that Hickman isn't cinematic, but where it's a little more cinematic and maybe has just a little bit less depth, Hickman comes with a little more grandeur and a little more just kind of weight to his writing. He likes to put a little bit more of a spiritual aspect in his stuff than I would say Warren Ellis usually does. Warren Ellis can at times. So I think like that's going to be the next closest thing to probably getting something that's like Hickman. And then other than that, you're like pretty far off for the rest of it because there's just not a lot of people like him. Yeah, he's a trip. My first impressions, uh, it's I think this was a really good way to kind of come down off of the high that was the apex, or excuse me, I should say the climax, and the conclusion of the, I can't say proper, or I can. It's my opinion. The Jonathan Hickman Fantastic Four run proper, volume 3 for Future Foundation and volume 5 for Fantastic Four is really where the run wraps up, and then what we get here in Fantastic Four Volume 6 with, like Ash said, like these vignettes, these kind of one-off stories, a lot of backstory, and then some forward story, some side story. As we're getting those, we get a similar dose in the Future Foundation Volume 4 as well. But it does it does more character work because there's not, like, the plots are confined to one or no more than 2 issues. So it does a lot more character work than anything. And in doing so, it does start building towards, as we've said multiple times, as Avengers and New Avengers run. And some of those things are very, very key things, not to be overlooked just because of where we're at now in the story. These are just these like kind of more one-off stories. But they were endearing to me. They showed, if not different sides, then just the consistency of these different characters. Older Valeria Richards, older Nathaniel Richards, or where he is now. um some of the people from New World and stuff like that, and how things would go with them, the Wizard, AIM, all of that stuff just got a little more fleshed out and got a spotlight on it. And I think, I think we're the better for it. I could see how it was, how people at the time could have been like, okay, yeah, this is what's going on, and then it wraps up, and then you go into Avengers and New Avengers. But I liked how it kind of returned back to where Fantastic Four started. They were vignettes, with Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and Jonathan Hickman did a really good job of, like I said, paying homage to that while making it meaningful. And that is how I was impressed with Volume 6. But now we got to go a little deeper. We're going to go a little deeper. We're going to talk about some of these moments that left us impressed. And Mr. Von Comics, I'm going to start with you. It's only fitting, right? Because one of your main ones is in issue number 1, are kind of the story thread that goes through the first issue of Volume 6. Go for it.
All right. So, um, my impact, I guess, yeah, it started right from the first issue, and I think this first issue, 605, might actually be, um, might actually be my overall favorite, um, favorite issue of the whole thing. Um, so I guess if you're navigating, well, I was trying to get it so that I could navigate myself here, and
Sure.
of course, my stuff is acting up on me because
I got your
that's
back.
how it likes to play.
It's a
Um,
dirty game, computer, dirty game.
it's a dirty game we play. Um, there we go. There we go.
Got her.
Let's see if we can do this.
Eats alive.
Um, waka gaga. All right. So basically, this issue is a father son issue. Reed and his father, and it's an epilogue. After the whole events that's happened, and Reed is being taken forward in time. His dad is showing him like what the effects are in the future, um, with them, and we get to go in the year 3000 something, and that there's now 3 Baxter buildings, and there's this legacy, and we get to see like glimpses like of what the future, Fantastic Four still around. Franklin Richards leads them. It's got some other different members, and that's like the crux is like there's been multiple members throughout the it's been a millennia, but 2 have stayed the same, and that was his son Franklin and Ben Grimm. And when I flipped the page, I was like, wow, like Ben's still old, and we get to see like, uh, we get some stuff that I'll just flip through. But Reed kind of puts 2 and 2 together, and he's like, I kind of had a theory about this, and it turns out that when the they made the special concoction or whatever to try to cure Ben, but they can only cure him for like 1 week out of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And Reed was like, yeah, I was thinking about that. And he puts 2 and 2 together. And it turns out that when he turns into like human Ben, that's the only time he actually ages. And so he's able to live for thousands of years because of that. And it's like, damn, that's one of those things that like Jonathan Hickman seems to only really do. Like he'll take basic concepts that are like right in front of our face and then turn them in a different angle, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like one thing, I was like, oh, Ben Grimm. I guess maybe it's because Ben represents the fortitude of the team, right? He's the rock, so that's why everyone else aged. But I was like, nope, it's not even that. It's this whole scientific reason. And the idea is like he's like, oh, okay, well, I want to know more. So he goes forward today, and um, each time he goes forward, the dad's like, well, are you sure you want to go? It doesn't get better, like, and he's like, no, let's go forward. It's not so bad. And it turns out when they get to the year around 5000, that Ben finally does pass away, and we get kind of like a funeral scene with Franklin having to, say goodbye, and that's when finally Reed's like, "Oh no, let's go home," and he's just kind of sad. Um, but that's really not the impact. I just wanted to lay some foundation. What I really liked is that sets up this whole little scene here, which is a real simple scene between two friends, and it was really special to me because of all the characters of the Fantastic Four, the two who like have the most friction is Ben and Reed, in my opinion. And there's been a lot of play on the idea of, sometimes some writers will bring to the table like, oh, Reed could have cured Ben, but like he didn't want to, and whatever. And so Ben has like some animosity because he feels, and whatever other writers do. Of course, that's not really relevant, but it's part of the lore. And so, and Reed is always the kind of guy, he's like off doing Reed things, like he's got to save everything, fix everything, where Ben is the Rock, right? We got to see in Hickman establish that, like when they were on their first adventure and down into the center of the earth, these mole men like needed help, and it was like, it was Ben just jumps off and immediately just goes, doesn't even say a word. He's all heroic. So you can see how their ideologies would butt heads. And this scene really hit me because it felt like a really good epilogue to this greater story that we had just had, and very much kind of like the actual epilogue that happened at the end of that story, where we got to see Reed interacting with his son Franklin, and it was a really touching moment. You're getting to see like how Reed has changed, and he cracks up a beer and he's sharing it with his buddy Ben. And sorry, I'm having a little trouble here.
No worries, we got you.
Computer problems. Um, and he's just, Ben's kind of like eyeing him, and this is where the artist does a really great job with some of the body language. And Ben's just kind of like, huh, what do you. And he's like, I miss you too, Stretch, because he understands that Reed can't exactly say, but we as the audience understand. And they have a previous conversation leading up to that about like, are you sure you don't have things to go fix? You sure, like, are you gonna hang out? And Reed's just like, nope, I'm good. Like, and it's the maturity of Reed, and that's one of the things I really loved about this Hickman run, was it had all these big bold ideas and these big epic climactic conflicts and resolution, but at the same time you got these personal character moments where you got to see pretty much every character in some way grow in a matter. And I liked what he did with Reed. I think Reed needs to be who he is, that sort of detached, scientific, almost like kind of on the spectrum. Like he's just more about the logic than the emotion, but not too much. Like I don't want him to be a villain. So seeing Reed learn that his humanity is what makes that he needs, it's and in the family being there for him, all of this just kind of played together. So if you guys read this, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that was it. This the impact was really this whole issue, and it was hard to just break it down as just this scene, because I feel like the foundation was super important to make sense of it. And I feel like this whole issue itself was just this scene, and Hickman was just like, this is why this scene's in. The book itself didn't even really feel like a whole lot of a story. It just felt like a scene. But there you go. That was my deep dive into my first impactful scene.
Very nice, man. Very nice. Yeah, I mean, that's that scene. It just, yeah, it's almost like, yeah, you can think of the scene and the emotion that you want to tell, and then Hickman's like, okay, now I just got to build my way to it, going backwards. Where does this start? How do I make this small, almost what could be perceived as mundane or trivial scene matter? And I really I like that like when I write, there's often times where that's kind of what I have to do. I feel so strongly about this one particular thing, and the emotion that it evokes, and I'm like, okay, how do I make this make sense to everyone else? But Hickman is a master storyteller. I'm some guy from Sacramento lighting the beam with the beam team. Uh, Twin, what do you got? What moment is speaking to you? And if you direct me,
So
I'll pull that page up.
yeah, so we're gonna go to page. This is issue number 606,
Okay.
and the where I guess it gets like in the impact of it. I'm looking in the collection, the trade collection, and it's on page mm, 62.
Okay.
So
Describe it to me
set
and
a
I'll
little,
find it. What do we
yeah,
got?
yeah. So I'll give you a little setup here. So the issue opens up. Fantastic Four. They're in the spaceship, and they're. It looks like they're racing towards a planet. They're talking about this mission. They expect to find some. But they've got to, they expect to find like no hostile invaders or anything. It sounds like it's a space mission, like okay, a routine standard space mission. You know, the ship crashes. They have to walk on foot. There's some giant like lumpy ball alien monsters that come after them, and it just seems like okay, well, this is just like a really weird like little space sci-fi Fantastic Four story. Okay, pretty normal. But then when you get to page 61, 62, after they've done the mission, or it might be before, it might be a flashback actually. Yeah, it is a flashback because it says 3 hours later or 3 hours before. It should, yeah, this is like a flashback. It goes back to a time before they start, before this all happens. So yeah, you see there's the alien monsters, and Reed's like, no, don't destroy them, and then they hop on one and it takes them for a ride. So it's like, okay, it's this the Fantastic Four. They're in deep space. They're wearing these outfits, so it's like, okay. Well, you go a little further along, and then you see them. They're sitting in a hospital waiting room, and then they're talking with the doctor, and the doctor's like, we've done everything we can. I'm sorry. That's the one right there. But Mr. Lumpkin is going to die because he has a tumor. You saw it right there on that page before it goes to the hospital. You see the Fantastic Four. They're sitting there in his brain right next to this giant tumor. I think it's in his brain. Um, and so, for the in case there's somebody who doesn't know the significance of this guy, Willie Lumpkin is like a deep part of the Fantastic Four lore. He was the mailman, the postman that would deliver the mail to the Baxter Building. Stan Lee actually played him. They got Stan Lee to cameo as him in the movie that Tim Story directed. So he's like this longtime friend of the Fantastic Four, and was absent during like all the previous Hickman goodness that we've talked about. So this was like a neat little way that Hickman was able to kind of include him in his run. So yeah, he's had like they find out he's got a tumor in his head, and the doctors give him like a very poor prognosis. Uh, the doctor's like, the best you could do is you could pray for a miracle. And I like the scene, the thing looks in the window and he sees Willie. He's like, a miracle? Does that guy know who he's talking to? And it goes to the president and it shows the Fantastic Four. They're working on the tumor. They've got the instruments and everything. And then what happens is we get a happy ending. We see looking through Willie's eyes there, he's opening his eyes. He sees Sue there holding his tumor in the jar. And it's just like this really touching scene. This poor old guy just wasn't expecting anything to happen, finds out he's got a tumor, the size of a 50-cent piece, and just the connection and the friendship that the team had. He's not a big name guy. He's not a main member of the team. He doesn't have superpowers. He's just the mailman. But he's got such a connection to the family that they were willing to do this whole, I call it the magic school bus excursion, where they shrink down and go into his body like one of those old magic school bus episodes. I mean, because it's something they're able to do, rather than leave it up to chance or whatever. They're like, no, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do what we can to save our friend's life. And so it was a good little feel good issue. I really enjoyed it. Again, it ties into the whole the whole theme, the overwhelming theme of like family and connection, and what Hickman has already like laid a lot into. and planted a lot into during this previous arc he did. It just kind of continues that. So I really dug it.
Yep. Again, just more incorporating important parts of the lore, things, or I should say, when I say important, like parts of the heart or the core of it, just parts of the story that make it what it is, that make it its unique thing. The reason why the Fantastic Four aren't just the Avengers or vice versa, why they have their different feels and whatnot. Uh, yeah, and Hickman has heart. Like, yes, he has these very clinical stories sometimes that he's trying to tell, but I mean, he's putting heart into these stories, and we're feeling it, and it's making an impact. It's making a difference. Um, all right, I guess it's on me now, huh? I gotta cue mine up. The first one that I'm going for is actually in the second issue of this, or what is called 605.1, I think it is. Is that what it is? Let's
Yeah,
take
that
a
Yeah,
was
look.
issue number
yeah,
605.1.
they started using the decimal points and everything. Marvel liked to be confusing during this time.
Oh,
Marvel,
Marvel. Yeah.
During this time,
It hasn't
you act like
during
they
stopped.
this time.
stopped.
They don't do the
No,
decimal
now they
points,
actually
or at
do
least they
dot
haven't
letters.
recently.
Yeah, they
That's
do.
true.
Dot
That's true.
letters. What in the world?
I forgot about that. Yeah, whereas like A, like 120 dot A or dot, yeah, that nonsense has got to go, y'all. Come
Yeah,
on.
why couldn't this issue just be 606?
Why?
And then the
Why?
next issue, which is
Why?
actually
Simple.
606, be 607?
It's ridiculous. We won't get into it. That's a whole nother stream in itself. But where we find ourselves is in what feels to be an alternate universe. We got spaceships going off, so we know the space race is happening. We see the Fuhrer over there, and we see a young guy who, well, he appears young in the face, but obviously has gray streaks already. But that is our Reed Richards there, and naturally, you would imagine that Adolf Hitler, having any great minds that he did, as we know, he was putting those to use. So, in a sense, there is a Fantastic Four being formed. And true to the continuity that we know of the 616, we get introduced to Ben or Ben Jacob Grimm, and he is in this case he is a Jewish soldier. So I'm glad that they kept his heritage intact, and Hickman thought of that when crafting this story. But as we go through this story, and we see more and more of the Nazi affiliated Reed Richards, he ends up putting on. He ends up posing this question, this equation, and trying to figure it out, trying to solve it, because every Reed Richards wants to solve everything. It's like it gnaws at them. And he is not able to figure it out, and the other great minds aren't able to figure it out as well. And eventually, there is a young mind in there that does figure a little bit of it out. And what was his name? Victor Von Doom. Figuring out the thing that this Reed Richards could not figure out. But we see that it appears 4 months ago from this current time that Reed's had a little work done. There's some blood, and we see that there is a guy on the table with the top of his dome piece chopped off. And that's Victor. And this Reed is so diabolical that the part of the Von Doom brain that is the missing link to what Richards can't figure it out, well, he went ahead and lobotomized that guy and put that brain in his brain. That's pretty. What the heck?
That was
Jonathan Hickman.
wild.
What's happening? But sure enough, the four of those people that were or the three of the people that were recruited, they go in the spaceship and all that stuff, and They end up being affected by the rays in space that gives them their powers. But this Reed Richards, since he's gotten the Victor Von Doom, portion of the brain, of course, whereas before Reed would be subordinate, that's not good enough now. He's got a little bit of doom in him. So he just can't be okay with being underneath anyone's thumb, even if it's in this reality the most powerful man in the world, Adolf Hitler. So he appeals to Ben Grimm and his hatred for such a group, for imprisoning his people and himself. So he hooks Ben up so Ben can get some comeuppance on the Fuhrer. He gets beat up. Of course, Sue and Johnny Strum try to get in the mix, but it's clobbering time, baby. It's clobbering time, even though clobbering time doesn't exist. And then we see this Reed Richards going crazy. He's going off. I really like this part that even some of the X-Men and stuff like that and Magneto tried to come up against him, but they were not mighty enough. And you see that since he's taken over the Nazi party and he's the most powerful man in the world, and they got the Nazi symbols, but from when I remember reading it, like it's gone beyond that. He assembles an Infinity Gauntlet, and he is power hungry. He's basically Victor Von Richards, and he's just blowing stuff up, and he ends up destroying the whole planet and really almost the whole galaxy that he's in. Everything died. And then he's floating. He's just floating a little while, and we're like, what the heck? He's just floating? What's happening? He's got the gauntlet. He grows a little beard out there. Oh, what's this? A machine? A bridge? Just floating out in the distance? Let me go through it. Oh, what is that? It looks like the Council of Reeds. And sure enough, he meets up with the other ones, and we come to find out that he was the other one, the third one with the Infinity Gauntlet in the Council of Reeds, the one that our Reed Richards went to become a part of. And I thought that was like, damn, we didn't need that backstory.
Yeah.
But boy, did it feel like worthy of our time in the read. I thought it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was reading this and then I was like, okay, what is this about? Like, what's going on? And then you get to those last few pages where you find out, oh, this is one of the Council of Reed guys. Like, I'm noticing a theme here with a lot of our, like, at least our first three picks. Like, he lays this foundation and then it pays off like the last couple of pages. Like with Ash, it's like, okay, that whole exchange between Reed and Ben, you go through this whole time travel story, and it's a good little time travel story in and of itself. But then when you get to those last few pages, that foundation really, it leads you to this big payoff. And then, like with the Willie Lumpkin and the tumor story, it's the same thing. Except you don't know it's a big plot twist because you think they're in outer space or something, and then you find out, oh no, they shrunk down. They're in this guy's body, and then yeah, with this one, it's like, okay, what is this? What am I reading? This crazy alternate universe thing? Oh, it's Council of Reed. So he's really good at setting up these little stories, and then towards the end, it's like, oh, by the way, this is why it's important, or
Yep.
this is where it ramps up and gets your emotions going or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's true. Master storyteller. All right. I think we should leave Ashes for last, especially since it's the last issue. So, Twin, you want to give yours? I'll give my second and last one, and then we will go into
Sure.
Mr. Von Comics.
Sure. So mine, I really like, and I had the issue number pulled up here. League of Comic Geeks, don't crash on me. It was one of the issues that's actually done by Mr. Ryan Stegman on the art, and
Steggers.
This is
Steggers.
some early Ryan
Oh,
Stegman art.
this is early Ryan Stegman. I think it's a different inker, or maybe it's the colorist. I'm not entirely sure. But it was a really fun issue, I thought, and it was issue 610. That's what it was. So
610. Gotcha.
610. So a little bit of setup here, and actually, it's cool because This leads to something down the road with Marvel, but it's not a Hickman book, but it does lead to another Avengers story. Um, so right here, basically boiling all this down, AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics, has bought and has rights to set up shop on this island in the United Nations. President doesn't like it. So he calls, we got the big heads of Marvel. We got Captain America, Mr. Fantastic, Giant Man, Iron Man. He's like, Cap's like, well, we can just go in like full scale invasion. But Reed's like, I know the wizard. I know the guy that's leading them right now. Let me and my guys go in and we'll see if we could do this a little bit more peacefully. Um, so we see the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man is still with them. He adds a nice little extra comedy bit to it. Um, and Bentley is and Wizard is just still he's not all in his right mind. He's still rambling and AIM comes to him, sir, the Fantastic Four are coming. He's like, a prayer has been answered. It's like he's like reading a crazy person. So you get this little opening skirmish. The Fantastic Four come in, they're fighting the guys in their beekeeper outfits, and there's the banter with Spider-Man and the Thing, and but where it really gets good, so, you know, Reed is negotiating with this ambassador and they come to terms. And what happens is, though, towards the end, I'm actually going to see, I had it pulled up here on my computer, my little phone computer here. And sometimes it wants to turn the pages easily and sometimes it doesn't. What happens, though, is they get Wizard, he's locked up in a cell. And Reed comes to see him and he's like, you're sick. You're sicker than you've ever been. I want to help you, and I'm gonna try, but I'm not hopeful. And they go through this exchange. Wizard's still like spouting this crazy. It's like, I saw a vision of you with a dark shadow falling across your face. Maybe a little bit of foretelling of what's to come. He said, I saw you being tested, Richards, and I saw you fail. And so there's a little bit more. They exchange a little bit back and forth, but then Reed's like, somebody wanted to see you, and I expect you to behave. And he opens the cell door, and it's Bentley, everyone's little favorite evil Future Foundation student. And he comes in, and he's like, he's got a little present for him. And Wizard's like, "What's in the box?" And he's like, "It's a personal identifier to help you hold on to who you are, to kind of keep you from going crazy." And what happens, and it's an open-ended ending. As far as I can tell, there's no resolution to this. He turns it around on Bentley. He's like, boy, you don't get it. You are me. You are a clone of me. You put the helmet on. And so, because we know Bentley's a little diabolical little mastermind. He likes to blow stuff up, and he loves his grenades and his causing mayhem. So now the wizard's like, no, 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 you're me. You're a clone of me. So now you put it. And so I mean, I was like, oh, this is a really cool story here. But then the book ends and it's open ended. You don't know, at least in this book, you don't know what happens. Does he put it on? Does he reject it? You don't know. Um, but yeah, I like this whole issue. The ending especially was really cool because it's a very left field. It's actually the opposite of the previous stories we were talking about. The lead up has really nothing to do. This was out of left, like nobody mentions Bentley. You see the wizard, but nobody really mentions Bentley. It's all about trying to get AIM under control, making sure they don't blow up any neighboring countries. But then out of left field, Reed brings in Bentley, maybe to kind of try to bring the wizard back to some sense of humanity. But
Yeah.
instead, we see the wizard being like, "No, I'm gonna tempt you with the forbidden fruit. You be me. New me or whatever." So I really like this issue though. It was a lot of fun. Really good story. Ryan Stegman on the art. Like I said, I liked his art style with this. Uh, but yeah, man, the wizard. And it's funny. Before this, the wizard was like, and he's not a list in the villain tier, but he's definitely gone up in the rankings for me. Like he's become a much more. I think him going crazy balls is a large part of it, but he's definitely a more memorable villain to me now.
Yeah, leave it to Hickman. Again, just make things feel like they matter, or they feel like they matter because he makes things matter.
Right.
Of course, editorial can always come along and, you know,
Stuff can get retconned or wiped away. Yeah.
yeah, it can really end up not mattering because of, some editorial decisions. But Hickman
Or
tried,
someone could just change a certain character into not
Dan Slott. Dan Slott.
a certain character who we saw is living to the year 5000 as a Fantastic Four member, but yet somehow isn't now because he's not even a mutant with powers. He just
Yeah. He just wanted to be a mutant really, really badly. Or when actually I'll take it even further than that. Not Franklin, the Thing. At the end of Dan Slott's run, Dan Slott had he had like a prophecy that said like the Thing was gonna die in combat with a alien gladiator. And like Hickman's run says that he pretty much lives until he dies of extreme old age. So
Right.
somebody thought that they could get by without doing the homework.
and he also says that he goes off to like live with gods for like a millennia. It's kind of hard to do if you don't have powers and you just imagine them the whole time.
Kind of hard, yeah, just a little bit.
Just a little. Just a little. My second and final moment of the Jonathan Hickman Fantastic Four is going to deal with Wakanda and T'Challa.
Yeah.
T'Challa and Reed Richards, because from the Fantastic Four, T'Challa came, so it's only right that they continue their journey together. And I thought this
Hey, wait.
was really
Shouldn't this go forever? It's Wakanda, not just a little bit, but forever.
Well, the movie's box office isn't going forever.
Wah, wah, wah.
Ouch. But T'Challa and Reed in the comics, forever, ever, forever, ever. Absolutely. In this case, Jonathan Hickman adds to the Black Panther lore because he just brings weight to everything. He adds to everything. Except for...
Dude, he added a ton in this story. Like, this is like a 2-issue story, and I was like, I think you added... Man, he's added more to Black Panther's lore than anyone since, probably, just in these two issues.
Yeah, I would say so for sure.
And it feels like this is another thing that's been forgotten too. But I don't want to steal your thunder. Go ahead with your.
Don't forget that thought. Let's talk about it. I will go dive into this. So the Fantastic Four get invited to Wakanda. Reed Richards is under the belief that it's to help with vibranium. But T'Challa, informs him that it is not. It's actually something, a little. It's something that's deeper and maybe even a little spiritual. And really, why he brought Reed there is because Reed intellectually is one of the only people that T'Challa said can keep up with him. And also, I think there was some indication that physically too, just because of Reed Richards' abilities. So this is while T'Challa is not the king of Wakanda right now. He has some ability, but he's not the fully powered Black Panther right now either. That is Shuri,
Right.
Both cases. But something is bothering him, and really what it is at the center of it, it's not that he's not as strong, and it's not just that he doesn't have the crown and the title. T'Challa is someone he's a true king. He really is looking to serve his people. He wants his people to be confident. He wants his people to be fully prepared. And it's not that he doubts his sister's abilities. It's just that he's so used to holding a position of duty as king that for him to be without it right now is just a shoe that doesn't. It might even be the quote unquote right size, but it just doesn't fit him properly, and he can't stop thinking about it. So he and Reed journey on down, and eventually they get to what Jonathan Hickman adds to the Black Panther lore. They get to Necropolis, and that is the city of the dead. Primarily, who is buried there are the former kings and Black Panthers. And as they're going through this and they're going deeper and deeper, eventually they get to the Panther goddess, and this is my favorite part. So she's, of course, T'Challa kneels, and she lets him know to stand, and she's basically she's asking him like, hey, you brought an outsider, you brought a stranger to Wakanda. Like, why did you bring this stranger here? And T'Challa has to let her know, like, oh no, he is, excuse me, T'Challa didn't let her know. First, Reed speaks, and Reed is letting her know, like, hey, it's my loyalty why I'm worthy here. I'm Reed Richards. I am here as T'Challa's second. The man is my brother, and I stand where he stands. And I just really appreciated that we get to see how intimate the relationship is here. And we get to see it a lot more in Avengers and New Avengers. But the relationship between Reed Richards and T'Challa, how it's developed, what it's turned into. Reed didn't say, that's my colleague. He didn't say, that's my best friend. He didn't say, hey, I've known this guy for a long time, like we vouch for each other. He said, that's my brother, and I stand where he stands. And that was just very profound to me. It had a really, really, really big impact. And it was a sincere enough answer to where the Panther goddess was just like, all right, that's cool. You can stay. But let me tell you, though, this is a serious thing that's getting ready to happen here. And you guys will have a bond that is intertwined and cannot be undone, possibly not even by death. And I thought that was dope. And what was also interesting about it is the Panther goddess saying that is because as you go on, she's questioning T'Challa, like, what is it? Like, what, like, you made this trip down here. What do you want? And, he says, I want to be what I was, to be a king, to be the Panther. And he's talking about how he wanted to serve his people. And she was like, okay, if I give you these things, what am I supposed to do with your sister? So it puts him in a predicament. And he's like, well, I don't want anything to happen to my sister. I love her. She's my sister. She rightfully has the throne right now. I can't make a choice like that. And so they end up kind of making a bit of a compromise. And what the Panther goddess does is, she's like, I see it in your eyes. I will give you a word, my child. And she tells him, I love this. She gives him prophecy. She foretells of coming days. And this is, the whole Phoenix thing that happened during
Avengers versus X-Men. Yeah. Which,
Yeah.
hey, Hickman took something that Bendis wrote and made it actually kind of cool looking here as the prophecy.
He did. And this would be the second time because that's his very first Marvel book. That's what he had to do. Secret Warriors. And we see, of course, the flooding that happens, that Namor does. And she's just foretelling of death and suffering. And, she's like, none of that's going to happen compares to what follows. You asked what greater need is there than service, referring to the service of his people. And the Panther goddess says, salvation. That's a greater need than service. Your people they won't just need you to serve them. They'll need you to save them. And what she did, she basically, she was like, you won't be king of Wakanda. That's what your sister's going to be doing. And you won't be just the Black Panther protector of the Wakanda, but in Necropolis, the Wakandan city of the dead, where the Panthers go to die and where you will rule as king of the dead. So she makes him king of the dead, which then gives him access to all the knowledge, all the power, like every intangible thing that was a part of like the memory and the mythology of the former Black Panthers. he has all of that now. So he's way more powerful than just a Black Panther, with the heart-shaped herb. At this point, this dude has gone way beyond that. He is Black Panther God. And I just thought that was cool that Jonathan Hickman added that onto the mythology of the Black Panther. Again, didn't have to do that at all. He could have, but he had a vision and he wants to use all these different pieces of Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four history to build this big old grand story, because ultimately, even though it goes through New Avengers and Avengers, it comes back around to Reed Richards. So I just think it was beautiful that he, T'Challa, got introduced and started in Fantastic Four. Is that issue number 56, I think? 52, issue 52.
Yeah, 52.
Yeah. Yeah, 52 and 53 was the introduction of T'Challa and Wakanda, and I just love the fact that Hickman found it fit, and found a way to use it. It was dope.
Yeah, it was. I love that whole little story, that especially like the where you were talking about, like Reed says that T'Challa is his brother. I was like, dang, like just reading that, like, because I like I like the family part, like the Fantastic Four, like they're a family, like they're close to family. But like another trope that I really like is like the I almost hate to call it a trope. It sounds hokey, but like the found family thing,
Yeah,
like
for
think of
sure.
like Guardians of the Galaxy, or you have like friends that are really close, like that's. So that kind of hit me here, where he's like calling T'Challa his brother. I really like that, because also that's not like a thing you typically see a whole, or at least I haven't read a whole lot between Reed and T'Challa. Is like I never, I guess I hadn't read enough to be like, how close is their friendship. I know that they have a friendship. Somewhere around this time they had, I think it was before Hickman, they actually had T'Challa temporarily lead the Fantastic Four,
Yeah.
with Storm, while Reed and Sue were off doing something else.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was really cool to read, though.
And now
Just this intertwining destiny.
I
Mhm.
don't have firsthand account of reading Marvel comics during this era, so I didn't catch references to like the Avengers versus X-Men sort of stuff.
Mhm.
But I am aware of that Shuri, sorry,
Mhm.
became Black Panther, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
I get the feeling that when I was reading this, I was like, I get the feeling that there was like a an editorial mandate that Shuri was gonna be Black Panther and stay Black Panther, and to which perhaps Hickman was like writing and going like, oh, I want to do this, and they're like, no, you can't. We're not taking Shuri off or whatever. And so
Mhm.
it was like, all right, I'm gonna. If I can't make T'Challa, if I can't fix Black Panther and put T'Challa back where he's supposed to be, I'll just elevate him
I'll just
to
make him
be.
cooler. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just
I'll
make
give him
him.
an
Oh,
upgrade.
you want. He can't be regular Black Panther anymore. Okay, he'll be the god of Black Panthers. He'll just be like. It's like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, you sure you can say Black Panther. I was like, man, I don't know if I'm right or not, but I just feel like I hope kind of I am. Like Hickman is just like, okay, cool, I'll smart you. Like you can
Yeah.
have it your way.
Yeah.
And the editorial's just like, damn it,
Yeah. Yeah.
Hickman did it to us
He got
again.
around us. Dang it.
Gosh, that guy is smart. Yeah, dude. No, for sure. Yeah, because like Reggie Hudlin was deep in. Well, actually, no, it wasn't even Reggie Hudlin anymore. Reggie Hudlin had set up that run, but at that time, it had gone over to Jonathan Mayberry, and Jonathan Mayberry was. I know they worked together. I think on plots by that time. I think Reggie Hudlin was just helping with plots, and then Mayberry was doing scripts. I can't remember when when Hudlin's name completely fell off, but they were going through like Doom War and stuff like that at that time, or a little before this, I believe. And yeah, Hickman was probably like, "Yo, y'all want me to do this? I need Black Panther to be back where he was before, because I got plans. I got plans."
Right, because it wouldn't have made sense for all the things that you described about like the how Black Panther's origins stem out of Fantastic Four
Mm-hmm.
and Hickman making these historical connections it wouldn't have made sense to like have Shuri there
No,
because she's not the historical connection. Like,
no, she didn't come till way later.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so that wouldn't have been this nice callback like that Hickman seems to be doing. Like he's paying homage and like he's celebrating the history of this title. He's doing his own things to it, but he's also respecting and celebrating the past as well. And I really love that about his run, that he doesn't ever try to like tear down like, oh yeah, what Stan and Jack were doing was bleh, like he's like, cool, I got my thing to do, but I'm also going to respect the past and celebrate and kind of add my little spin to it. And I love that about what he does. But putting Shuri in this, if he would have done this story and it was Shuri instead, would have been like, okay, whatever.
I mean, he just wouldn't have even done it.
Right.
Just,
Yeah, he wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
like he just you couldn't have done it. Just wouldn't mean anything. She is my sister, and I stand where she stands. Like
Right.
no, like
No,
he
it's like,
knew.
you've known this girl for 5 minutes. I mean,
and she's your sister now. Like what?
was it Shuri that invited you to Wakanda and her first appearance? No, it was T'Challa. Come on now.
And I
Yeah.
dig even like how Hickman did like boys night out, girls night out. Like Reed and and T'Challa went to go take care of going to the necropolis and T'Challa's dilemma, his true dilemma at the time. And Sue and Storm, as they know each other in this, even still, this is recently because just even T'Challa and Storm being married is newer. But like they have a bond, so they hung out, and then they backed up Shuri, who they don't know as well, but that's T'Challa's sister. I mean, and like if you retcon it all, you could say like, okay, well, if she was there the whole time, then like they met her before or whatever. But Hickman knew to split the two apart. He went and he did the adventure and the romp and the action with Shuri, since she is crazy and she got a bloodlust, Storm and Sue, and then T'Challa and Reed went to go handle, the spiritual stuff that took them on past it. So yeah, it was just really good. It was cool. It was satisfying all the way around. The rest of the stuff in the issue worked out really nicely too. But yeah, Hickman was just like, oh, I can't do that. Okay, well then I'm gonna do this. And he's like, and this is not what you said. So you said you would take it. So here it is. And they're just like, okay. Like he got him again, man. He got him again.
Yeah, I liked what he was doing here. I wasn't such a fan of the story in general compared to the rest, but the ideas here I was really on board with.
Mhm.
And one of the things I also thought was really cool, like I never liked the Storm pairing. Like I always felt like that was just like, whoa, they have the same skin color, they should fall in love. Like I was like, what? Like I just never saw the two characters even being together. It felt like very forced to me. Also,
It was
Storm's
very
from a-
forced at the time too. They like
Yeah,
hired
and
that dude that was
Storm's
like
from
a romance novelist to come in and like write some of the stuff for it to like make people believe that they would get together. It was
Yeah, it never made sense to me. But and also Storm's from a different part of Africa. She's not Wakandan. I was like, anyways. But one thing I do like is that Storm has connections to Egypt and stuff, and I'm not sure this might just be coincidental. But it wouldn't surprise me if Hickman, being the big brain guy that he is, and he loves Marvel comics. Like he likes comics. He's not just like some work for hire guy. He's like, okay, whatever, I'll write. So like he clearly has a passion for this stuff. He adds Egyptian lore to Wakanda.
Yep.
Like that was huge. I was like, what? Like
Yeah, with the
the whole
Nubis
Black
and stuff.
Panther is coming from this panther god of Egypt. Like, what was the name? Like Bastet or something?
Oh, Bastet. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bastet is where they got Bast from, who is the Panther goddess that.
Yeah,
his
yeah. And
tribe
I'm like,
prays to.
that's really cool. And I'm like, I'm wondering if that's coincidental or if it's maybe Hickman trying to tie things together and make this what's otherwise really contrived and forced type of thing to be like, oh, there's a greater thing at work here, and maybe like because Storm's Egypt, like it's like the Black Panther, like I don't know, like destiny, and I don't know, nothing's explained that way in the story, but it makes me go, I wonder, like, and it opens up for so much more. I really feel like Marvel just doesn't even use the Egyptian gods much, and like one
Not
of their
really.
characters.
Not outside of like Moon Knight.
Moon Knight.
Right, and I'm like,
Yeah.
as I was about to say, is like one of their
Yeah.
characters is based on like an
Yeah.
and it's like, well, now you've opened this mythos. You've basically said the Egyptian god mythos is in your universe. Where's Anubis? Where's Amun Ra? Like, where's all these bigger gods? Oh, well, they are tied in, and I'm seeing that here, and I'm like, that's so cool. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
eager to
that's
see
right.
it now. Like, I've never been a big Black Panther fan, but this story made me go, oh, there's like things here that I'm interested in. Now I'm like very curious to see like what he does with the Avengers, and
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
Yes, you will be.
and part
Yes,
of the
you
reason I'm
will
not a
be.
big Black Panther fan is because I feel like he's never been given interesting things. I always felt like it's very contrived. Like, we need an African hero who's a king of an African nation. Oh, okay. Like, that's fine. I'm not against that, but I want this is like, and he's tied to these gods and these oh, that's neat. Like, yeah. So I'm very much looking forward to that. That's I just wanted to get my 2 cents on that.
For sure. One last thing that I'll say, and this is kind of more about Hickman than it was about the story that I was talking about, but you mentioned about like how he doesn't tear down other stuff. Like he tries to respect it, while still making the changes or whatever. And it's true. Like Hickman does deconstruction, but he does it via like his own stories. Like he does deconstruction via destruction, but within his own stories. In his stories, he'll build them, and he builds like soft parts that we know can fail, and he puts it right in front of our eyes, And he's like, this, and this, and here's this, and here's how this works. And we're like, oh, that's a really cool idea. He's like, yeah, but if this ever happens, then what happens? And we're like, oh, that could be really bad if that happened. And he's like, yeah, but we're going to go over here, and then through that, he puts the heroes through the gauntlet within it, his own story. He doesn't necessarily have to go and like, remember this and they were together. No more. And remember this, they were friends, right? Remember they were friends? They're enemies now. They hate each other. They don't talk. Like, he doesn't really do that. He will build all of the tension within his own story. He doesn't have to like, rip the umbilical cord from like other things that we have been like getting nourishment from over the years that kind of turn the characters into what we like. On
Yeah.
that note, Mr. Von Comics.
That sounds like me. So my second impression, surprise to no one in the room, is Doom, Doom, Doom.
What? No.
What? And
This was a cool story.
oh man,
That's an understatement, but
it's sorry, I'm running multiple windows. It doesn't like to share the screen saving or sharing thing as well. But so basically, this is kind of an epilogue story to like what happened to Doom from the main saga that we went through, and Doom was supposedly sacrificed himself to save everyone, to buy them time, and of course we know from that story that Valeria kind of left him an out, and so he's been alive, but no one's known this, and so it comes to be that we as the audience know. So what happened? So Doom basically he has the Infinity Gauntlet, and he goes to the gate, and he goes to the universe where his Infinity Gauntlet works. And apparently it's an empty void, and Doom says basically, let there be. And in a sort of sacrilegious parallel to the God story, creating the universe in 7 days. Doom kind of has his own Doom version, but of course, being Doom, it's not pure, and it's not the same way. And I like that. I actually, when I first started reading this, I was like, wait a second, Hickman, what are you doing? Like, why are you turning Doom into God? Like, but it works out. It works out, and on the first day he does this, second day he does that, blah blah, and he builds his own universe according to his will, and he makes because Doom is technological and magic, he builds his world as technology based species, and then a magical species, and so forth. And we get this scene where the Kindle, come on, Kindle, where Doom kind of realized, like, it says something uncontrollable, something wild, something apocalyptic. It was then on the 7th day that Doom realized a mistake had been made. He had made a universe in his own image. The universe turns on him. And I was just like, oh, that is so cool. And that's such a sign of a good writer, when they can take you to a place where you're uncomfortable and you're not sure. You're like, oh, that's just not working for me. I'm not buying this. And make it work. And I was like, cool. If you're gonna make a blasphemous Doom, show how it doesn't work. And I was like, that's great. And then we get this other scene here where Valeria is whispering to her father, and it's really cool. I liked how this panel worked out, because it's very much like, have you guys ever had like a waking dream where it seems like real, and then all of a sudden you wake up and you realize that what you were seeing in your dream was based on real influence in the real world?
Mm-hmm.
Like I once had a dream where I was in an action movie. It's gonna sound really silly, but I was in an action movie, and I knew I was in a movie. It was weird because it was surreal dreams. The soundtrack was Pearl Jam.
Oh wow.
And I was like semi-conscious that I was in a movie and there was a soundtrack and everything, and it was Pearl Jam. But I was like, whatever. Like, how in dreams, even the weirdest things make sense. Like, because it's just like your body is like, go with it.
Right.
But then I woke up and my alarm clock was blaring Pearl Jam. Like, so it was just one of those things. And like, I love how he does that kind of in this scene where it's like little baby Valeria, wake up, Dad, wake up. And he's like, huh? And it's actually real Valeria, but it's future Valeria. We gotta go. And the scene plays out, and he's like, wait, I thought Doom was dead. Like, what's going on? It's like, you probably shouldn't trust me so much. And there's a really cool line where she's like, trust me. You shouldn't trust me so much. Like, what? Like, what did she say? Says, well, trust me when I tell you that you shouldn't always trust me. I thought that was a great line. And then, so they have to go, and his father ends up helping him because they got to go do whatever. They leave Valeria behind. They figure out the whole story. I'm not going to cover all the details, but they need to rescue Doom, and so they go, and they manage to get him, but and through like negotiation, essentially, the society has been divided into Infinity Bearers, 3 on the science species and 3 of the magic species. Each bears a gem, and 5 agree to let Doom go, but one of them doesn't, and they manage to escape. But one is like fighting, and there's this really cool scene where like the lobotomized Doom army is just like marching across the tongue and just assaulting them and into the, it just, I don't know, somehow I got a kick out of it. It was like Doom, 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 and I don't know why I love the Doom army,
because you love Doom.
I do love Doom, but it's just something about it just interesting and fun and just so crazy. Like, this was a story that it's a short little tale. It's just like, hey, whatever happened to Doom? And it manages to be kind of big in scope and almost absurd. And I think I also hearken my appeal for this particular one because I said before in one of the past episodes about how I didn't like Valeria in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And because I had read the volume 1 of FF before any of it, and so I didn't have the backstory, and all I had was what she was doing in that book, and I was like, oh, who's this kid? Oh, it just rubbed me all wrong. But then when I finally read the whole story in the right order and everything, I was like, oh, changed my mind. I actually do like this character, and I do like her relation to Doctor Doom. And it all works out. And so here, if anyone is gonna save Doom, it's gonna be her. And I like this like little kiss on the cheek, and like Doom's like all uncomfortable looking. Um, she's like, "Say thank you." He's like, "What?" Doom does not say thank you, and he just like stares and is like, "Consider us even, Richards." Good enough. Let's go home, Victor. And it's just a quaint little like story, nothing huge, but it just works so well. Again, we get to see more of the future Valeria. There's some funny bits, and I've talked before too about how I'm not real big on the quirky, like Hickman. Sometimes he tries to be funny and it doesn't work, but then sometimes he succeeds. And so there's a bit where I don't remember exactly where it is, where she's basically, oh yeah, when you get back home, don't be afraid to give me a big spanking. I'm sure I need it. Like because she knows how bad she was as a little kid. And in context, it's probably funnier than I portrayed it, but
I liked it.
yeah,
It was a
it was
good
it was a
story.
fun little thing. And then the final resolution to the overall issue is she decides to go back or stay in this like that nether in between world where the council was,
Mm-hmm.
and her final line is like, "Here I can build," which I thought was a
Which
cool
is
resolution for her story because the whole time a young Valeria, like she was always making things and doing things, and she's kind of her father's daughter. And this seems like this just seems like a fitting place for her to end up, and
well, it's
this left me very
also
satisfied.
doesn't Doom say that? Or like
Yes.
he's like, here I can build. Like does it's like a callback to him as well.
Yep. When
So
he got
You
left
reminded me, I'd forgotten
behind.
about that.
When he was left behind, and they thought he was left for dead, and he found his way, through the bridge, and then to the council, and then all those those lobotomized dooms had gotten out. Yeah, he sat on that throne and was like, "Here I can build." So yeah, man, Valeria, she got a little doom in her, you know. That always makes things interesting and fun. Everybody, great moments. Great moment. There's so many, and there's a lot that we were not able to get to. This was like 7 or 8 issues, and
We
um,
covered a pretty good
pretty
amount
good
of them
chunk,
though.
yeah.
we did, but there was still more that I think there were some
Yeah,
issues that I don't even think
I would
we
urge
covered.
everyone to read these. This
Yeah.
you cannot go by synopsis alone.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's kind of a thing these days with other channels like Comics Explained or Comic Storian. Like, and I get it. Sometimes you just don't have all the time in the world to read every Marvel story or whatever. So it's like you just kind of want to know what did happen in Secret Invasion. Like you go and watch a half-hour video and get all that backstory, which
Yeah.
can help inform other stories that you do want to read.
Yep.
Not knocking that one particular, just first name that came to mind.
Hmm.
Um, but like I said, these are some of the really good stories. That's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
the Hickman Fantastic Four run is not one of the ones that you want to just summate. You
You want to
experience
dig
it
into it.
yourself because
Yeah.
it plays out way better than we, synopsize it.
I
I
would
don't know if
agree.
Abs-
synopsize is a real word, but if it's not,
It
I'm
It
is
using
is
it
now.
anyway.
now. Twins, great minds think alike. Well, that completes us talking about the moments. As Ash said, I will echo those sentiments. Read this yourself. Don't leave it to us and our explanations and whatnot. Definitely take the time and invest it. It's more than worth it. There's a reason why you hear so many people talk about the Jonathan Hickman run. And even if you don't feel like it's the greatest run uh, of Fantastic Four or one of the greatest runs in modern comics, or more recent, within the last 15 years, that's fine. But I still believe that you will find it to be a quality run. And at this point, we can open it up to whatever we want to point at, and it'll kind of be like our conclusion as well. Is there anything else that y'all wanted to point out, talk about within these issues? I know we covered a lot of it, but feel free to point anything out.
One of the things that was on my mind when Zach was talking about one of his bits in that story where they help Lumpkin, I really did like that story, and it had a really cool. It kind of sucks if anyone hasn't read. We spoiled it because I didn't know what was going on. I thought that was a really cool reveal.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like, oh, they're on some weird. The book just opens up in media res, which means like in the middle of the action. It doesn't have like a beginning. It's just you're
Right.
thrown right into it, and you're on some sci-fi adventure, and they're crashing, and it's. And I remember as I was reading it, I was like, "Oh, this is such quintessential Fantastic Four." Like I feel like this is what I love, that they're like adventurers, not. I respect the Fantastic Four as heroes, but
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I love about them that seems to be separate, if not unique, is that they're more of explorers and adventurers than actual. Like we're just sitting around waiting for villains to show up and fight them. They're off just exploring the universe. It's almost in some ways very similar to like Star Trek.
Kinda, yeah.
And I get some of that same feel out of it. And I was telling my buddy who hates Fantastic Four, and I think it's more of a prejudice because just on the surface, I don't think he's ever really read Fantastic Four. Um, but I was like, I think you might like it because he's a huge Star Trek fan. And I was like, it. And I was saying the same things. And this anyway, that story. This was like, yes, I'm really digging this, and it also started becoming like a heist. I loved how like I love the way that Hickman would use these like cutback scenes, like what you see on the screen here,
Mm-hmm.
where he's like they're in the planning stages, right? And I've seen this used in like heist movies and stuff, where like you're in the middle of whatever's going on, and then you cut back to them talking about, okay, then we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do, and then you go back, cut to the present, and they're like actually doing it, and they talk about like we got to move this 30 million ton whatever, and I was like, what are we gonna do? Oh, we're gonna steal it, and I was just like, oh, what's going on? Like, what's this thing that they found that they're gonna get? Well, anyways, big reveal. Oh, it's a tumor, and they were micro-sized, which was really cool. I'm totally glad. Like it took it turned a corner from this really interesting kind of like sci-fi exploration, kind of like a heist. Like they're trying to oh, what's going on? Oh, they're actually healing someone, and oh, it's their mailman. Like, oh, that's touching. Like, a really cool way to reveal things, but. And I don't want to sound like complainy or whiny because I don't know a better way to do it. But part of me afterwards was left a little bit like, wait a second. I know Reed Richards can pretty much do anything, especially the Hickman Reed Richards. But I shouldn't like Hank Pym been involved. Like I feel like it's an obvious thing. And I was like, and and this is probably just me just personally, but I don't like when heroes or characters tromp on other characters' territory. For example, if Reed Richards should by all means be able to invent his own Iron Man armor, right? He's smarter than Tony Stark. Um, but if he did, that would sort of like make Tony Stark feel less relevant. So Reed Richards being able to be like, yeah, I can do micronizing too. Like you're like, oh, I thought that's why Hank Pym was special. Like, and so part of afterwards, I was kind of like, man, Hickman. And again, not complaining, love the story. It was just more of like, there's like an opportunity here. But at the same time, if you would have put Hank Pym in the story at any time, it might have blown that reveal because you don't know that they're micronized. And so if you put Ant-Man or Hank Pym in the story, you're like, oh, well, obviously. So I don't know how you could do that properly, maybe other than at the end where he just like thanks Hank Pym, like, hey, thanks for letting us borrow these things. I don't know. But I did really like that story, and that was just something that was on my mind when you were describing it, um, and I really did. I love that reveal. I love how he takes you down one direction and then it does this hard turn, and you're not expecting it, and
Yeah.
almost turns it into a different type of story. And
Yeah.
that's so risky to do because generally, when people are sold on one type of story, they
Hmm.
want it to conclude as that sort of story,
Right.
and um, I liken that as an example. A movie that I love very much that's extremely divisive to a lot of people is M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. And that movie sells
Oh
itself
yeah.
as like this horror movie.
Yeah.
And
I
it
remember The
turns out,
Village.
nope, it's really a love story. But you went in going, wait, I'm on the horror roller coaster. That's what I wanted.
Yep.
And so if you don't turn, if you turn the audience, you got to do it in a really skillful way to keep them on board. And
Mhm.
what I'm trying to actually say though is that give props to Hickman that he does that. He takes the story that you think is one thing, turns it into something else, and it all comes together and it works really well. And he does it in one issue. Just
Yeah.
man,
You don't
amazing.
see a lot. That's the big part to me is the one issue. You don't find
Yeah,
too many writers today that do a whole story, beginning, middle, end in one issue. They'll
yeah,
drag it out. They'll have all this needless exposition or waste your time with parts that aren't that could be edited out so that they could drag it on for 6 issues or however long.
yeah.
So
This easily would have been like a 6 issues for a lot of other writers.
yeah. So I'm impressed anytime I can find somebody that can do like a memorable story that hits you in an emotional way, all in one issue. So yeah.
Absolutely. Um, is there anything else that's standing out to y'all about the story at all? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Well, I just spoke a lot, so I don't want to monopolize anything.
Well, then there you have it. So those are more of the little parts that kind of stuck out to us about the Fantastic Four Volume 6, which is oddly enough is called Foundation. I wonder why that is.
It's weird that that's the name of the final volume too, because this is like he's off of Fantastic Four after this, so he calls it Foundation. It's like, well, wait a second, should that have been at the beginning? Nah, but look ahead at what's coming.
Exactly. All right, y'all. Well, we'll wrap it up then. We went through our moments, first impressions. We will sign off with the final thoughts. I will go first. It's just again just a master at his craft at work. Just doing the deep work, the surface work. You could really tell that Jonathan Hickman took this opportunity that was presented to him by Marvel and just pulled no punches. The only punches that were pulled were the ones that they told him that he can't throw, and even then he still found a way to make a hard impact and deliver those crucial critical blows that we needed in order to feel moved and be in awe and all of those things in the way that this run has captivated majority of the audience that ended up reading it and experiencing it. So I just loved that you could see Hickman like through his work building up to something like this, but even with that, this is that one project where you see people building up, but then you're like, okay, they're going to take their next step, and they end up taking like 4 or 5 steps ahead, in their career and in their craft from this opportunity. And this was definitely the one for him. So um, it really is just an honor and a pleasure. That's why I've read this run so many times, just because you know it's so especially in our circle, we hear the phrase, like, this is what comics are all about. And of course, it's hyperbole. Like, comics can be all about so many different types of things. It's an art form. Through it you can express various different emotions, opinions, thoughts, whatever. But when I do think of when I was younger, and or my a lot of my I'll go back to when I was younger. When I think about when I was younger, and I was thinking about the superhero books that I was reading, because that's most of the comics that I read, outside of like the old comics that my great uncle would like pull out and and try to and show me, and I was interested in, because I was just like, well, he knows comics. He's older than me. This is so cool. This definitely takes me back to what it felt like when I was younger, and my imagination wasn't as limited by the realities of the world, and books like this would just take my mind, to this place of wonder and awe and amazement. And as even though I've lost a considerable amount of that, and I've had to find ways to build it back, at the age of 37, this book, reading it for whatever the third or fourth, I'm pretty sure this is the fourth time's a charm. Hickman, he did it all. He did it all over again, and it was just great. Ash, Mr. Von Comics, conclusions, final thoughts.
I subscribe to a concept in writing that there are three pinnacles to writing. The first is narrative, second is characters, and the third is world building. Any story needs all three of those to some degree. If in the first two, if you can just succeed at either one, narrative or characters, like if you can, not to succeed, I mean, you can excel, you can typically get away with the other two lacking. So if you have an amazing narrative, and narrative can be plot driven, it can be thematic exploration. There's different ways to have a narrative, and so forth. But or if you just have really lovable characters, right? This is why some people like slice of life books, because you just fall in love with characters and you just enjoy reading their exploits. That even if they do nothing, it just there. If you can pull that off. World building is a little more challenging. There are some people that if you can just have amazing world building, you can get away, but it typically is less universal. And besides, I'm digressing. Why Hickman stands out to me in these Fantastic Four books in particular is that he's excels at all three. And that is when you run across something special. And this is why I think certain things like George Lucas's original Star Wars movies were so special, because they were all three. And I think big fans have been around for a long time, I think, will understand. And there are other stories and franchises that have similar things, but oftentimes I think that's why a lot of writers don't write fantasy or sci-fi, because they don't have to rely on strong world building. If you can just write in the existing world that we live in, then it's already been built for you, so you don't have to do a whole lot. Although even then, the writers that really excel are ones that get into that world. I could think of like writers like Tom Clancy, who was just super knowledgeable about military and geopolitics and things like that. So he could build this world within a world that most people aren't aware of. And so anyways, I digress again. Hickman is just that's really what blows me away here. As anytime I as a reader, I think in those terms. And like I said, oftentimes if you can just do one of those really well, I'll be impressed. If you can do two really well, I'll I'll be amazed. And if you do three really well, I'll be blown away. And this Fantastic Four series blew me away.
There we are, y'all. We not only Ash, but we are blown away. Ash being blown away is kind of messy because, you know, it's like ash all over the place. Us, on the other hand, well, that's all right, baby. That's just fine by me. Thank you to everyone who joined us again for another installment of the discussion topic of Hickman's Fantastic Four. We will be back next week to wrap up to cover the last of the stories, and that will be the Future Foundation Volume 4. Future Foundation Volume 4. Twin, did you give your last thoughts? Did I skip over Twin? I did.
I think you might have.
Yeah. Hey, we can't do that.
I'm almost upset. Almost upset.
I'm glad you're almost upset because it's fitting because I almost forgot to let you.
Almost forgot. Yeah,
Take it away.
No, final thoughts. Man, what a run. You know, kind of piggybacking off of what Ash said, kind of in the same vein of that, you know, Hickman writes these grand, like really smartly thought out stories. You know, we talked about how he like loves sci-fi and physics, and he writes it all like airtight story, pretty much, I think. But and that's all well and good, but what really makes it connect with you is the relationships and how these characters relate to each other, and Hickman nails that just as well as the technical aspect and, you know, how things work and the rules of the universe. He has both the emotion and the logic of it. Just he has both of them down to a T, and he knows how to combine them and how to twist them at certain points. um, just masterfully done. It really is, and now I'm proud to say that I have read through the entire run consecutively. And yeah, I mean, look, and there's good Fantastic Four that's come before. Obviously, there's the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, you know, Jack the King Kirby. There's the John Byrne run, which is a lot of folks love the John Byrne run. There's a lot of good Fantastic Four out there, but this is, I have to say, by far, in my opinion, cream of the crop with
I'm
Fantastic
worried that
Four.
I might be broken for Fantastic Four.
It feels like that, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel like that a little bit?
Much like Frank Miller broke me for Daredevil,
Mm-hmm.
all these years later, like every Daredevil I read, I put on that bar. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I just
Yep.
like, I don't know, man. I hope someone can even do 75% of this.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like I read the Dan Slott run, and that maybe does like 25%, maybe 40 on a good day. You know, so it's like, you know, I kind of want to tackle like there's the Carlos Pacheco run, there's the Mark Wade run. A lot of people like, but I'm just like, I don't know if any of them are going to compare to this. So, you know, we'll wait and we'll find out.
We're gonna
Yeah.
find out. We will definitely find out. Twin, you the best goes last. Thank you so much for wrapping it up with us. And yeah, next week we'll be back. Future Foundation Volume 4. Check us out. We're gonna go through that either the week after that or the week after that. So we might have a week where we jump into a. So I'm trying to think if there there's some Hickman one-off kind of trades that we can jump into if we need to for that week, but we will be having like a kind of a free-for-all in the series and a special guest will be joining us. So
I'm on pins and needles waiting to see who this is.
yeah, should be fun. I think you guys will enjoy it. Thank you everyone again one more time. If you're watching this on the VOD on YouTube, come check us out live. Skip and Tosh on Twitch. So it's twitch.tv/SKIPNTOSH. Links are in the description below. If you were here with us on Twitch, thank you so much. You're in the chat. We were interacting with people earlier. We like to interact with chat all around. And then we go offline and we sometimes we talk about the books more, things around the books. Sometimes we talk about things like Avatar 2, the way to get soggy when you're in the movie theater for 3
Way to get
hours.
soggy.
I'm soggy Yojimbo. Yeah, so we might talk about stuff like that. It's more laughs, more of a good time. You gotta come check us out live. The VODs are there too, but come see us live, interact. We like to talk with y'all. On that note, we are signing out and we will see y'all next time. Later.
Bye,
Good
guys.
night.